really strong group there, which is one of our best performing groups in terms of how it gets feedback from 360, from other departments and clients and so on. It's a very successful group. In media, in creative, it feels like that's not quite the same in the US.
So
there's a mix of bits.
we have these 4 user types identified. That's going to talk us through what you think the primary use points are in 3 slides.
Okay, and so, but the output of that, in terms of what we're looking at here in this red box, there's an implication for it, because obviously what I would love to do is overall for our insights group, the problem we have is like anywhere, there's lots of non-automated, redo the same task every time stuff going on. And really what you're describing here, in some ways could be viewed, one reading of what we've got here is a window into that whole department and everything that happens. So we could roll up anything that's happening in insight terms into one
be like a
platform, there's a portal, and we see that.
Yeah, that's very much how we've been sort of tentatively thinking about it, is that this suggests a potential linear workflow, but it doesn't impose any workflow. It lets you essentially pick and choose and go into the area of research that you want. Within each area, there's some guidance, there's some templates, there's some existing outputs that you can look at and clone, if applicable. And there's tools, and those tools, some of those tools might be things that we build, some of those tools might be just links over to, to third-party tools that exist that do the job better than we could ever do.
Yeah.
So just structurally, it's, at the highest level, it suggests this end-to-end program of research that would be fantastic to do if we had infinite.
So I agree that should be our vision, and that's what actually Gregory for myself had for the last couple of months. We've been having these productization meetings as to how we incrementally do that from what we've already got just inside that media group. I guess I'm just trying to understand in this slide and in this discussion, to what extent then is that thing we're looking at, this answer, which is this could be all these pieces, versus this is Arcadia's structure. Because to me, Arcadia was one piece of lots of parts of that.
Right.
And so,
but we don't know yet, to be honest.
Okay.
We could choose to craft how much or how little of that we want. Whenever I see the stuff, when I go to see what Jose and Luis' team are working on in Madrid, and I see the coordination of all the media platforms in a consistent language, and it seems to me there's a benefit of us as a group to have common platforms, common language, methodology. So I see that as a good thing. I also know that there's people that don't like that, and there's workflow issues, and don't touch my cheese type stuff, right? But why wouldn't we want to do that? I don't see, if we're thinking holistically about the future of our business, making it really simple for people to have access to these tools, enable them to see the value in a really rapid way, it's all good.
And Greg, this is still front end, this isn't activation of the plan or anything like that.
This is all research, just research,
No, I see that, but I guess it just, for ourselves, we're describing this as even on that slide, Arcadia will be structured as self-service portal, and these things in red are modules of what it's providing me. Whereas actually our discussion is far broader than what we've so far talked about Arcadia doing. So I know we're talking about the vision for Arcadia, but to me it's a bit like when we say Polaris Suite in media. It's actually a collection of 8 individual tools that we've made to look the same and we've made to be used in every country. Separate to Polaris Suite is all the other work that our team might do using something like QBU or Affinio in social, or just pulling out search insights from Google or whatever it happens to be.
So this could be the vision for the broader suite of tools, and then there could be a subset in terms of when you're just doing Arcadia that is also an Arcadia portal.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay.
I guess, and this sort of looks like what's happening, and I know that we haven't touched or talked about it in a very long time, but the Lucy AI stuff.
So we
have
had Lucy come in and show Stuart and the team. I felt there was a subset of that functionality that is interesting to this, and have pushed for that. And just because it's there and it's being paid for, might as well use it, right?
Right.
We're not yet aligned on how and when that can come in, but I think it's definitely, I think I'm on the same page.
Okay.
How does this match with the Hub or Shark or whatever? Because there was an initial
I don't know
tool for this platform that was supposed to be doing this, isn't it?
Happy thing?
No, it's not Happy, but it's what was the name? Hub,
Sharp, I thought.
Sharp.
Okay, I don't know. What is that? It's dull.
The version of
But
Happy
it's
we
gonna
actually
be the
own, they're
same,
allowed to
right?
use.
Yeah.
It looks like more or less the same, doesn't it?
No,
From the idea, from the.
I think from the idea, it's the beginning part of that,
What
but
is
then that's
something?
supposed to be end to end with execution.
No, with the execution is on the platform, right? The whole thing.
So just for our own sanity then, just so I'm clear, so we know what we're talking about, in the paradigms we're existing in, we have discussion 1, which is Arcadia as tool, which is a customer insight tool using syndicated survey and AI to analyze a specific customer
where we
segment
are right
against a
now.
specific breed. That's where we are today.
Right.
Separate to Arcadia,
That's where we are today, but if it's not global.
right,
So
Right.
there is
English.
also a future on that
Yeah.
part.
right, okay.
If,
So it's
if we wanted to.
In trial in US in English language, basically, right. Then we have, and alongside Arcadia doing its thing, we have multiple other tools that exist that we own or built: Connect Study, Spectrum, Wave. Those things all live inside potentially a structure in media called MAP, which is a process and how we get from A to Z, and in a structure in theory in the creative group called CBI, which is how we get from A to Z there. If there is
Sure.
a structure, it's that one, right? We don't have. So those would be uniform processes with Arcadia Connect as the leader. In the future, and then collective noun for some of those tools is Polaris Suite.
Okay.
They happen to be branded as like this is a collection of them, and that's more global and it's just media. And then separately, when we think about the future vision, we at this top layer, we believe that both media and creative should have a common language of how a client enters the door and goes from A to Z, which for media is MAP right now, for creative used to be CBI, may now be different by different place. And we have a vision that says not only those tools, but also data available to us, first-party data from a client or potentially third-party data, but also gives us insights, but that all those pieces and parts that help us make a decision on behalf of a client should be accessible via one portal or access point, because that would make more sense, and they should all speak to each other and join up. And in our world today, we would say in this room, hey, let's talk about whether that's what Arcadia has to be and could become. In our room today, we know that there's some entity called Platform H or Le Platform going on, which is also maybe just technology, but also trying to join things together.
I
then
would presume there'd be
separately-
a similar sort of like,
Mission for that,
yeah.
but maybe wider, don't know. And then separately, we have what we acquired from Full Six when we bought them, which was a audience planning end-to-end tool for doing lots of these things, but that we don't own the technology for, and so we're commissioning someone to rebuild the version of that technology. So all those 10 different boxes of stuff exist in our world today. And so I'm okay that we continue a discussion that says what's our vision for Arcadia can be, and should it be all of those things or one of those things.
Or something.
But as long as we're all on the same page that I think those are all the bits that are currently happening.
Yeah,
Right now.
agreed. I mean, it's basically an impossible problem because
Something has to
for
be the
this to
master
actually
meta
yield
tool.
value and win business and prove its worth, it has to do very tactical focused stuff, and we have to have design sprints that are actually delivering functionality and value like every 2 weeks pretty much. And if we and if we start thinking about how this coexists with all these other tools and whether
I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
this is
Mark.
inside of the process.
I think
or-
we part of what we're here today is to align on on how the structure is, and then we also need to know in the short term, here's how Connect is going to fit in, and that's step 1.2 of these mini steps. But
I think Connect plus Arcadia, there's obvious synergies, and there's already a ton of stuff that we can do, and we've already talked about some of that. So I don't see that as a problem. But deciding, whether this should be the primary portal to all of our media and creative tools across the entire global network, that's a really tough problem.
somebody's got to climb
Well,
that mountain.
Yeah, but it becomes a too large of a problem to solve quickly in a natural fashion.
Sure. And again, we have like this afternoon, so but I think that was a good frame for you to put it into the context of how this all fits, and
There are
maybe
many,
we go
many things
from
going on like that.
the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain to the top, which I don't know. Let's get more granular, which I think is the next slide.
Okay, so
I added some more stuff.
just positing some basic features that we would want to have accessible throughout all aspects of the platform. Multilingual support is a huge one, of course, and the roadmap for that is going to depend both on market sizes and market opportunities, perhaps even like specific global clients that would push us to do one language first. There's also potentially some technical issues because some of these AI services are not available in all languages, so there's some decisioning there. We want super robust user access control, including potentially access options for clients, as a client extranet, if we want to expose some of these insights directly to the client. Automated
It's actually
text,
speech to text. that type of-
speech to text, so
Yeah.
that's the idea of having a survey module that actually like prompts people to speak versus type.
And you guys have seen Albi, which is like a rough version of that, but I actually think the vision of this is I get a phone call, and I take the phone call as the survey. And that I think is easy, people will do that, and they'll actually tell us a lot, because they're accustomed to that, as an option. I'm not saying it's a necessity, but it wouldn't be hard to do, and I think the benefits from that are, well, we've proven that people say more when they're talking than when they're typing.
So automatic segmentation, that sits inside of the individual areas of research, or comes out of individual areas of research. Ability to apply client branding, so again, the extranet thought. We have a really interesting visual design language coming out of the Madrid team already, so it might be worth looking at that further and seeing if we can sort of like run with that and apply it across the board to all the tools. And then importantly, like a really strong user feedback rating commenting system, so we can actually learn as we go from people who are using the system and make it better. And then potentially some other stuff that we come up with today. And then just common features that would exist hopefully within each of the research areas is an overview, when to use this, some sample outputs of it, some starter templates or boilerplates if it makes sense for that section, a list of sample projects that can be cloned, like duplicated and used as starters, again, if applicable. A thought about if and when any outputs of that area of research get surfaced in other areas. So a simple example of that would be like the syndicated research outputs or insights could surface when you're designing a custom survey to remind people to probe on things that came out of the syndicated research. Like if there's things that massively over-index, that's an opportunity to ask a question in the custom survey. So basically cross-linkages between the research sections. Obviously access to the tool itself, whether that's something we build or whether it's a third-party tool that we license and link in. And then wherever possible, the ability to save insights and to do it in a very sort of discrete, atomic way, so that in the saved insights section then we can really let the strategists sort of decide how they want to tell the story, what order they want to tell the story in. So insights at the most atomic level possible versus like these pretty complicated things that we need to save. The focus areas for research, so social.
Some of these are questions because I don't really know the answers. to
Right,
this,
so
right?
you
this
changed
is-
Can I ask
Jason,
something
so-
on just the last slide real quick?
Yep.
How much of this is dependent on IBM? I know that Jason, you had a really good deal with them from.
No, that has nothing to do with our relation with IBM. We
Okay.
just we developed, just so everyone's on the same page. We developed in all tools and all techniques, and that's why I brought up the Microsoft discussion earlier,
Right.
because we actually work with them now and we're doing lots of stuff with them. The one thing that IBM has that we haven't seen other people do is the personality inside the bit.
Okay.
Now, the other thing is, I'll be honest with you guys, like we have a bunch of APIs that we have paid for, so we're using them now with this tool. Happy and eager to have mini AIs involved, and there's actually benefits of even building some of our own proprietary stuff, which Kevin's doing, and exploring that, and we want to do that. It was just the path of least resistance, and it actually helped us on the IBM story. But by no means are we like locked to Watson being the only provider.
Yeah, no, this is why I brought it up last week, Kevin, just because if, the plan is we're finally getting off Lotus Notes. So if that massive deal leaves IBM, I don't know how many sweetheart deals.
Well,
Microsoft stuff.
by the way, the Sweetheart deal's done,
Okay.
so we are signing a new deal, which is with finance right now, but it's
Okay.
relatively small, and we're 3 years into that, so that is what it is. And the Microsoft, just everyone's on the same page as Microsoft. We're switching to 365. Some people have already started that switch. There's some offices that are in it. That means we'll be using Outlook, not using Outlook anymore. No, we will be using Outlook, not using Notes. And with that comes a lot of things like Team Suite and integration and sharing of information, and there's an intranet in there. I don't know who's driving that, because every time I talk to IT about it, they're all pointing like this, right? So I don't really know. I got access to it recently out of London with the new business team, because they're using it, and I suggested we should have all new business teams go on it, at least start there, because we're the people that are probably most connected. But like how that connects with Agora is not clear. There's a lot to do. Some of that's rolling out now is testing. Midsummer, we're supposed to switch everybody over. I think this office is midsummer, if not by August, September, which means Notes is gone. Now, we'll probably keep Notes for a little bit of time just because the migration will fuck it up, I'm sure. But, I'm sorry, we'll do an optimized job over time repeatedly. Is that a more political way of saying it? And there is also a concern that Publicis uses Microsoft, and Microsoft is building their AI tool that is the center of their business. That for a period of time, the middle office was like, we can't use Microsoft because they're doing the same thing for our competitor, and the same team's building the same thing. Now that seems to have been forgotten because now we've introduced them to build some of the components of the platform, and we're just not talking about that anymore. So,
Also, API costs are very low compared to the cost of running the surveys.
yeah, this is true. The cost of the surveys is
It's
much, much higher than the API cost.
tiny.
It's hundreds of dollars right now for thousands of users.
It's like
Whereas
cents, like, tens of cents for the API cost per respondent versus.
Cost of acquisition of the customers, of the audience is much higher than actually anything else right now, so even, and there's a separate thing which we did not include in today's agenda, and that's the pricing of it, of which some of you guys have been involved in, happy to share that with you too, but we didn't want to get bogged down into customer stuff today, we're talking about functionality, what we need as the users. And then, I think we're up to, okay, research organization. Okay, so on this, we had initially, just so everyone's on the same page, talked about the 4 S's, social, search, syndicated, and survey, right? And syndicated and survey were prioritized. I think survey is really driving the user experience. The syndicated data right now doesn't correlate directly with the survey data. That's something that we've been talking about. How do we do that? How does that work? Whatever. I think Beth, Lasco, myself, and some of the team always felt that social was critical. We're starting to get in on search a little bit on GSK. We're actually integrating some of the Google search terms with our customer journeys for the arthritis process we're going through right now. So we're starting to crack that. But there's no real enterprise level process outside of like, what are the terms they're looking for? And then, asking some questions. We're really walking on that. Also, I don't know, like, if we decided on our search provider outside of Google. I heard there was stuff happening there with a new provider that's going to reinvent our. Sorry.
For paid search, you mean?
Paid search, yeah. And then how do we get the value out of paid search back to the tool? There's a whole thing there. For social, I know you're talking about Brandwatch, and there's also other things happening on social. We haven't cracked that at all. But the notion is how do we involve sort of like smarter social listening to drive sort of bigger, sort of automated insights, and then how does that apply to the customer journey? That could be an always-on thing, or it could be not. We could deprioritize it. But right now we have a big giant question mark when we talk about social integration, because we don't really have a point of view on it. I think I talked about search. I think there's some obvious SEO stuff on the digital side, on the creative side in terms of building site optimization to match the consumer search terms as we build sites and content. And there's also obvious alignment on paid. There's obviously paid on social as well. Right now we only have MRI and Simmons really. We've talked a little bit on the syndicated stuff about optimizing the upload so we can use other providers and just have the structure so it's really easy to get stuff in.
Yeah, that's working.
And we're close
It's
to
generic.
so
It's
now
generic, yeah.
it's working, but I know it's not really working, right? But it's much better. Do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, for the CX part, so this is stuff that you guys want to do in the future?
These are,
or-
so we're trying to get to the point of what do we want to prioritize this afternoon, right? And we know that Connect is a big part of it.
Yeah.
We had hypothesized like breaking this group into a couple different sections to try to, get more value out of a workshop rather than how all of us work on one of the problems. And we're gonna go through the users in a second. This is the next bit where Beth has done the 4 sort of strategic user types. We are not even going to the point of this being a client-facing thing yet. This is just us as strategic planners using this as a tool to help us on our research process. But the CX component of it, obviously that's why you're here, and we're all big, we're pro CX, we're keen on that. And I think that for me it's almost like a horizontal that goes through all of these.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the CX thing,
Yeah.
at least the way we've been looking at it so far is like it's one aspect of research, so it's one sort of deep dive, which includes the custom survey builder, it might include other functionality as well, but it's
Yeah.
also, it becomes sort of like the organizing principle for the output for all of this, for all the research.
Yeah, and I
Because
guess that,
and that's just because it's worked so well with so many clients in pitch situations where when they see that end-to-end journey and they see
Yeah.
the sentiment, and we could potentially overlay like search data and social data and
so
so
that's
forth.
kind of my question is, can we also, and maybe I asked it the wrong way before, but can we also overlay behavioral data? So not necessarily in context,
I don't
in
think we're
situ.
opposed to it, we just don't know what that means or how to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe we do have then a breakout group that cracks the evolution of the CX part
Yeah.
and looks at how we could add behavioral data. It's just complicated because now you have to connect with somebody's owned, like,
Well, not necessarily, you can run a survey and ask people, so like, or do an interview.
oh, you mean behavioral as in like, what is your
Decision-making
stated
process?
behavior?
Yeah, or what
Gotcha.
steps do you follow to do
Right,
X?
right, right.
And then to be able to get the aggregate view across all
I got it.
your customers, and also it'll help with identifying the persona clusters, because then you
Right.
start clustering against personality, segmentation, and behavioral.
Yeah.
So it kind of adds a little bit more richness.
That kind of is, I think that's closer to what we have in Connect though,
I was
because
thinking
we're
the
really
same.
saying, yeah, because I think that survey is saying, the question that literally goes to the customer, I think, is like, okay, when considering a new car purchase, when you start your research, which of the following places might you start to look, or would you expect to hear from an advertiser?
Which would be the most useful for you or so on.
But what if it's not, what if you don't have that list? What if it's like a custom or a new thing?
Yeah,
So-
well, but you mean that like doing a research like open-end also?
Yeah, open-ended, to be able to identify like more, so like when I'm performing a trade, what are the things that I have to do